I think if you look around you at all these people and you just think for a second about why we've gathered, and you may be here and you have doubts, and that's totally cool. Ordinary Faith is a church for people that have doubts. In fact, we'll create a few. But if you're here and you have doubts, just know we get that. But also look around. We are here today to celebrate the life, death, and resurrection of a day laborer from Nazareth, Israel, who lived 2,000 years ago. How do you even know his name unless something phenomenal happened? And so when we begin today, I want to start with this idea. You see, our critics, I know it's hard to believe that we have critics, but our critics think that some religious dudes got together, wrote a book, started a religion, figured out a way to take offerings, get politically involved, start wars, take land, what have you. And I'm here to tell you, there's no way in the world that happened. That's not possible that happened. That 12 guys would unite around a lie. In fact, it's not possible that happened because those 12 guys did not believe. Like, no one was more surprised on Sunday morning than the 11 guys who were left. No one was surprised. Nobody expected nobody. Nobody. I mean, they were going to the tomb to kind of put a pin in it, to be done with what had happened, and then all of a sudden, everything Jesus said was going to happen came true. And the fact that they went from unbelievers to believers so quickly. But, I could argue for the resurrection and the veracity and the truthfulness of the Bible. I could do all that stuff, but that's not my point today, because to be honest with you, I can prove all those things and it still wouldn't help you. Today, the real question is, why does Easter matter? The fact that we have a risen Savior, and we have these documents collected in the New Testament of the Bible that were recorded by some people who were witnesses or who talked to the eyewitnesses. And we have these accounts. We have an account from Matthew, who was a tax collector, a very intelligent guy, who obviously, as you read Matthew, you realize he was working with some scribes to get things right. And so we have Matthew, who gives us an account of the life of a day laborer from Nazareth that we should know about, but he gives us that account. And then you have Mark, who spent a lot of time with Peter, and Mark gives us a lot of Peter's account. And so when you read the book of Mark, it's very kind of, raw and visceral, because that's who Peter was. And so we get that out of his letter. And then, of course, we've been talking all month about Luke, and we're going to be digging into Luke in his second letter, or his second document today. And then you have John, who was literally personal friends with Jesus, and all of these guys give an account. And then you have Paul, who's the sworn enemy of Jesus, who becomes the biggest evangelist of who Jesus Christ was. And all of those are impressive. And if any one of those is true, if any one of those four accounts is true, you have got to take what Jesus says seriously. But there's one more. James, Jesus' brother. Think about it. What would it take for your brother to convince you that he was the Son of God? Think about that. James was martyred for that fact. He was martyred saying that his brother was the Son of God. And Jason's my brother, and there's no way he's the Son of God. Not even a chance. Religion doesn't exist because the Bible exists. The Bible exists because something happened. And today, there are groups like this all over the world together as, I think, irrefutable proof that something happened 2,000 years ago, and a day laborer from Nazareth named Jesus walked out of the ground and won. But I want you to see as we walk through this that when we come to Easter and we come to the resurrection, this isn't just a religious thing where we just come together on Sunday and we remember that Jesus rose from the dead and overcame everything that was against us, and that we remember that everything is wrong with us stayed in that tomb and everything that God intended for us walked out. Those are awesome things. But what I want you to realize is that this matters to how I live my life and how I face every day of that life. I have some big challenges that I have to face this weekend with some people who have suffered some deep losses. And the only reason I can do that is because of the hope of Jesus Christ overcoming everything for me and for them. And so I want to look at Paul's walk into Athens, Greece. This happened almost 20 years after the resurrection. It took a long time for the church to get out of Jerusalem and get into the world and follow Jesus' command. But we are today joining the Apostle Paul about AD 50. Most of you weren't around in AD 50. Some of you maybe. Welcome to Ordinary Faith, where we mess around, especially with our congregation. So anyway. So Paul finds himself in Athens, Greece, and he's stuck waiting on his crew. The rest of the guys are going to help him out. And so he decides to do what anyone would do, and starts to tour the town and see what's happening. So the Bible tells us in Acts 17, verse 16, while Paul was waiting for them in Athens, he was deeply troubled by all the idols he saw everywhere in the city. So Athens many of you probably took Greek mythology in high school or college or something like that, and you've learned about all these different Greek gods. Well, Athens was where all of those myths came from or were propagated, were worshipped, sacrifices were made, temples were built, statues were built, and all those kind of things. So Paul's walking around. In fact, a Roman official who was under the reign of Nero once made this comment about a neighborhood in Athens. And I don't think of the ancient world in terms of neighborhoods, but I guess they had those, the suburbs, I suppose. And this official said, truly, our neighborhood is so well stocked with deities to hand you easier meet with a god than a man. So Athens, when it came to religion and superstition and gods, Athens had it going on. They had everything. And so Paul saw all of these things. So you think of those Greek gods, but you also think of famous emperors of the past, warriors of the past, just people. So Athens is just covered up in temples and shrines and statues and columns and courts and altars, and everywhere you look, it's all over. And Paul's shocked. He's shocked. And you may ask yourself, why? It's the ancient world. This is how people did things in the ancient world. Well, here's why he was shocked. Athens was probably the most intellectual city on the planet at the time. All the brainiacs lived in Athens. The smart people, the philosophers, the doctors, the scientists, all of these intelligent, educated people, Athens was like a place where they gathered. And it's in Athens, in this place where all these smart people live, that they're just surrounded by superstition and idols and gods and everything. And Paul he's in Athens, and he sees all of this superstition, and he's got to do something. Now, maybe you ask why. Why does he need to do something? Why does he need to stand up to all of these intellectuals and all these really smart people who really think they're smart? Why does he need to do that? And I'll tell you why right now. And this is why Easter matters. Because every one of us, I don't care how smart you are, I don't care if you consider yourself agnostic, atheist, Wiccan, I don't care what you consider yourself. Every single one of us has a place within us that's crying out, literally begging to know, why am I here? What's my purpose? Is there anyone who cares about me? And what about my losses? And I think that last one is the one I think that digs the deepest. I realized I was working on a sermon yesterday for something else, And I realize that there are times in our life that we do not know how deep our heart runs until there is a grief that comes that makes us hurt there. And so that's why Paul had to do something. Because these people, for all their intelligence and all they had figured out and all the money they had spent to figure it out, they were still asking the question, do I matter? What about the things I've lost? And do I have a purpose while I'm here? The core of Christianity is good news. And that's where Paul began. In verse 18 of Acts 17, he says, so he had a debate with some of the Epicurean and Stoic philosophers when he told them about Jesus and his resurrection. I want you to see that that's where he started, was with Jesus and the resurrection of Jesus, when he's talking to all these brainiacs. In verse 18, what's this babbler trying to say? You may not know this, but babbler seems derogatory. They were not loving where he was coming from. What's this babbler seem to say with these strange ideas he picked up? Others said he seems to be preaching about some foreign gods. And then verse 18, they said this because Paul was preaching the good news about Jesus. Good news. Let's pause. Would you consider your faith, whatever it is, maybe it's Christianity, maybe it's something else, would you consider it good news? A lot of people's faith isn't that good. The news isn't that good. It's a lot of human effort, a whole lot of failure, a whole lot of feeling guilty, a whole lot of not freedom. So here's Paul walking into Athens, the most superstitious or religious city in the world, but also the most intellectual, and he starts at good news, and the core of the good news is the resurrection of a day laborer from Nazareth. That's where he begins. A guy named Jesus. I don't know how you were raised. I don't know your faith background. I know in a lot of faith backgrounds, regardless of whether they're Christian or something else, there is this teaching that is, well, you just have to believe it. You just got to have faith. I think the theologian George Michaels might have laid that one down for us. You just got to have faith. You just got to believe. Well, here's the difference between real Christianity and everything else. God gives proof. Proof. And you say, well, that's not enough for me. I want medical reports. I want this. I want that. No, what you want to do is reject God. I'm not trying to be harsh, but that's one of the reasons you resist this is because you just don't want a God. You want to be your own. I'm not being rude. I'm with you. I'd like to be in charge of my life. Problem is, it hasn't worked out well for me. I made some bad choices. I made mistakes. Some of them I did on purpose. Anybody else there? I want to try to tell you something. I'm a lousy God. I'm not a great dad. Ask my kids. But I'm a lousy God, especially in my own life. And I'm here to tell you that Christianity offers proof. And I tell you what, we could go into scientific proof, historical proof. We could go into all kinds of proof today, but I'm not. Here's the only proof you need. Look around. Look around. Billions know that Jesus rose from the dead.